Howdy, folks. This is Michael with the Reason RX podcast with my co-host.
Melanie.
Cool. And today we're going to be talking to the world-renowned scientist Bernd Heinrich. If you've heard of him, good. If not, we'll have information in the show notes, and you'll learn from the discussion and interview about him also, but has had a very impressive life. As you'll learn, as I say in the show notes. But let's say hi to Dr. Heinrich. Doctor, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing. Thank you very much.
Good. Could you?
I'm up here at my cabin in the Maine woods.
Nice. It's beautiful.
I say, I'm sitting on my couch in my cabin in the Maine woods.
Nice.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Great.
So, could you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
A little bit about my background. Well, where should I start? I don't know where to start. I mean, I was born in England, lived in Germany, a war and refugees, and came to America in 1950 when I was 10 years old. And then my parents were naturalists and who worked for a museum world over, and named next for the New Natural History Museum. And this was one of the reasons we brought over. We came with colleagues here and settled in Maine, home ever since I was just turned 11. I to the University of Maine in Oregon and started in forestry, and then went on to a master's degree in zoology, and then went to UCLA, got a PhD at UC Berkeley as an insect physiologist, hired for 10 years, and then wanted to come back home, and I came back to as close to home as possible, which of course in Maine, but I got at the University of Vermont, so that was within commuting distance of my camp where I am now. And I took a year off just here to work with my ravens in the woods, and also thought, well, it might be a good place to go if I retire. And it turned out to be so, and that's where I am now, and I've been living alone in the woods here for about, I don't know how many years is it, about, I guess, or so.
Nice. But yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like, tell me about yourself, Dr. Heinrich. Well, where do I start? It's like such a multifaceted and varied life. Because as I say, folks, look up in the show notes. He's in the top 10 for the American 100 miles or 100-mile distances, 24-hour distances. A biologist who's done fundamental work in raven intelligence, moth thermogenesis, wasp thermogenesis, bee behavior, climbs trees, do you still climb trees, Dr. Heinrich?
Yeah, sure. If I want to go get a bit of something.
Cool.
I'm going to get some crows sometime for another study that I'm going to do. And
nice.
Yeah, I feel at home in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same. I was out this morning just a little bit, saw a swamp rabbit, type of cottontail, and looked at some armadillo track and armadillo digging to see what these armadillos, these tracks I see a lot. I know where they are, and I've looked to see what their latest was, and saw some pond hawk dragonflies, and saw box turtle while I was out and things like that. Beautiful, nice area.
Nice.
But
Nice.
I climb trees, but I don't climb 100
Yeah.
feet up and hang from one arm on a limb 100 feet up. So
All in the
you're
name of
impressive,
science.
Dr. Heinrich.
Well, you have to know your trees. I wouldn't do it to people because their limbs are kind of brittle, but Bruce is solid, and my grip is solid, and I had a reason for being up there. Do it just for the hell of it. I went up there. I was the only place to see Fahrenheit, to see where the ravens were coming from, and see how many they were doing. So I had to be there, and rather than having a camera on eyes, it's always better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I know what you mean.
So, yeah.
Dr. Heinrich, I'm in Minnesota. And I was reading up on a few of your studies. It turns out you were here in Minnesota at Lake Itasca. And I guess you were studying the whirligig beetle?
Yes.
If you recall.
I was there. Hello?
Yes, I'm right here. Yep.
Yeah. I was amazed at these huge really thousands of them all in bunches, and all day they would be at the same spot, but then after dark they would be all over the lake. And, when doing this, and it turned out, well, that of course leads to two questions: why are they at night, and why are they gathered in these huge bunches? And first of all, I collared Dan Vogt, one of the students, and this will do a project on this, and we will identify some of these guys, and so we would race with a canoe and go through raft, and Dan would be doing the paddling, and I would be with a net, swoop in about a couple hundred, and then we'd dab them with red mulch and let them go and put them back into the aggregation, and then the next day we would paddle all over Lake Itasca and look at other. We knew where all the aggregations were. They were the same place every day, every night, and we'd find that they would travel much. So that was an interesting start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's one of those few. Hello?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Go ahead.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah,
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say, I can't tell who.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melanie.
Doctor, I was going to ask you, how did you even come to Minnesota? I mean, it's kind of between Maine, sort of, and California, I realize, but how did you hear about that? And I'm just curious where you got your information and how you came to get to Minnesota from that.
Not that I heard about Minnesota, that heard about me. I was at UC Berkeley, and I had colleagues all over the place, and they were from the University of Minnesota. They had a field course at the Lake Itasca. They take students out for field work, for hands-on contact, and they had instructors, and I was one of them. They asked me to come out, and I said, "Super, I'll do it," and it was a great time.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's interesting. It's one thing I like about Dr. Heinrich's work. A lot of people think of scientists as being nerds and weak and they don't do anything, but a lot of people are multifaceted. Show me the strength athlete who can go up 100 feet in a tree and hang from one arm. Who's the nerd? But yeah, like climbing trees, running, being in canoes, being outdoors, sitting in blinds. There's a lot of physicality and a lot of scientific work. That's one thing I think, people need to grasp, and that's, one thing I want people to learn from this podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well, certainly that physicality has allowed me to do a lot. It's requires a lot of endurance, but of course physical endurance is pretty much the same as mental. It takes mental endurance and physical endurance, and so I don't really separate them. It has really made it possible for me to do a lot of things, and for one thing, is be in shape and able to be out there all the time still right now, so I can keep going. Whereas other people have their knees replaced because they did them, and so I have perfectly good knees.
Cool.
And I don't know how many times around the circumference of the globe they haven't worn out yet, and they never will.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one thing I find interesting. Some of your, what you do, your physical prowess, your mental prowess, why you do some things, I find interesting, and I'm similar in some ways, but I'd be like a demi Bernd Heinrich, because I've only run 12 miles, not 100, so about an eighth. But I like that you run for a purpose, because that's what I do too. I've been out 12 miles, and partly to do the 12, but a big part of it was wanting to run up and down the creek that I live near to look at stuff. And so I didn't just run 12 miles in the quickest I could, but I'm running along, and I'm looking around. Look, there's a rib cage over there. Let me go see what it is. And I find 2 deer rib cages and some other bones over there. And on that run, I saw some plants I hadn't seen before, and I don't remember what else, but yeah, so I can explore the area that I live in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I even on some of my longer races, I remember, keeping my eye for caterpillars in the foliage as I'm running by, and exploring. It's a way of keeping track. So I see a lot by going around, but I've run 24 hours on a quarter-mile track too, and I didn't get much. Again, for something, for a reason, I get the U.S. National, and I knew I could. I really did, and I felt to do it. Then I'll regret, when I get, 80 years old or something. I didn't do it when I was 40, when I could do it. So that's why I did it, because I run one of the reasons I pretty much went to the University of Maine. I didn't have any protected interest. I had interest in a lot of nature, but I didn't think anybody cared about it. I thought that was my hobby. I didn't think I could living at it. My father told me, you've got to be a doctor, a medical doctor. You can't make a living off that. So he said, you could maybe, if you could get on it, and then the water and at different ports and go collect them and wasps or something, and that way feed your nature habit.
Cool.
But that's how I got started.
Interesting. Yeah. But so
because
Sorry, because what?
uh, I said I went to the university and basically because I was running cross country and a couple of coaches said, he says you are college, you go to college. And that's why I went. And then I took classes, and I really got interested in biology and the academics of it. And that's, I got very lucky. I made amazing discoveries, really. When I look back on it, I just can't believe it. And I got lucky breaks. But, you get lucky breaks only if you sniff it and go to a place where you run into them. They don't come to you. You have to go to them.
Yeah. You got to be very curious and be persistent.
Persistent, exactly, yeah. And you got to move around and get exposure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like what I see, and I think some of your work, looking at the bigger picture, you got to keep looking at, like you said in one thing, like you've got to, I'm re-listening to some of your books for like the third time, and one of them says, I think you said you got to look at the different, like kind of sort of, I forget the wording, like pieces of paint until you see what the big picture is. That's like a nice metaphor, a nice analogy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Only you see little pieces here and there, and the more you look, the more detail you see, and after a while they fit together.
Yeah,
that's right. And that picture develops from acute observations. Only reason those observations come if you're really curious.
Yeah. One thing I like to say. Some people talk about being skeptical, and I say, don't be skeptical, be curious, If you're skeptical, you just doubt everything, and you're just dour and say no, and you just wait for other people. But if you're curious, you'll figure out what's true, whether someone says it or not. You'll figure out what the skeptic knows and more,
Yeah, I mean, skeptical always means with respect to what?
Yeah.
I am quite skeptical of very things that people think are facts, but you look at them. So skepticism is good, but for me it fuels curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't just accept it. You have to look at it and examine it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put it in context of a passion and a love for the world and for facts.
Yeah.
Dr. Heinrich, would you say that your father was a big influence on your interest in nature and studying biology? And would you say that he had it because he was doing that himself, or where do you think you got most of your influence as a young boy?
It definitely fit with him because, he into the field, and we were collecting human wasps who would, for most people, be invisible. And he was taught by him. And so you got to see what 99.999 people never get to see what they even know about. And so that's like seeing secrets, that kind of thing. And of course, he never had any, and the only reason he got any living at all was because, to pursue it, because he piggybacked his passion for the insects on collecting birds and always wanted new species of bird from Africa or Asia or Indonesia, but he found some new species of wasps. And so I was pulled in, and then of course my academic mentors and I would mostly say that after a while I really get involved with nature and the wasps. I had birds as pets that if I wanted a pet crow, I had to find it and watch crow for a long time, find the nest and find like a toad. I'd have to climb this big spruce and get the babies, etc. If it was crows or jays. Then I got contact with birds, and eventually, you're interested in life in general. That's a big question. What's life all about? And how is it interrelated? And so ultimately it leads to looking at mechanisms, how things work, how they fit the ecosystem, the physiology works. It's kind of like motor mechanics, only it's living things.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very engaging. So it took off in college. When I learned, the academic aspects of things that I had never thought about, here suddenly were explanations for some things and questions of other things. So, one of the major ones I would say was a person named James Cook at the University of Maine in Orono, and he got me going on. Just a little thing like little Euglena protozoans, and he, out washing dishes in the lab. Pretty soon he had, manning some instruments, and then he got me going on it, and I started doing research, and it seemed kind of unbelievable to me that I was actually doing research, and he got me to go to UCLA, and where I really had made. Well, it took a long time for me to learn, but basically, just one thing led to another. I guess that's all I have to say. Just keeping my eyes open, and I'm still doing the same thing, but I'm getting my inspiration mostly from being out in nature itself rather than just reading books. I mean, I like to have the background knowledge to put what I see in context. So both the two go hand in hand. I thought I would run out of things, I thought everyone knew everything there is to know, but the more we know, the more there is that we don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's one thing I'd like some people to see more. I think just the way some science is taught in schools nowadays, and the impression people think science is in some other world or separate or not in everyday life, and they've got to know all this fancy equipment and stuff to do a new discovery, but they don't. It's like, look at what you're doing with ravens, and all these questions about animal consciousness and behavior. So I think we really need to get people get their eyes open and get people doing things like that. Like, I like what you say about the fact that you can't study some animals in the lab. You got to see what they're like in nature and see them holistically.
Exactly. And I think, part of the problem is our educational system. I kind of uh, don't like the way it's done now, which, the students, they start out with molecular biology.
Yeah.
How can you relate to molecular
True.
biology?
Agreed.
I mean, you can relate to a bird in the hand, or a tree, or a tiger, or some animal that you can see, or plants that you can hold in your hand, that you can collect and watch the behavior of. That's where it should start out in the natural history, is where the fount of all biology started from. And then once you, at one level, you go to the next level. I was fortunate to have that was not from molecular, it was from being out in the field and watching animals. And that's where the fascination comes from. Can't be fascinated as a little kid, about some molecules that you can't see.
Yes.
And that's how they start out in, that's how they start in college. It turns them off right off. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree, because
natural history. I was going to say it should start out with natural history. The only problem is it's hard to teach in a classroom of 500 students. You just can't do it. So it's a matter of logistics, and it's a way of life. People, didn't grow up all in the middle of a great city where there isn't much opportunity. So we need more opportunity. Younger people, the younger, the better, be out in contact with nature. All kids, they love animals. They that's why they have teddy bears and so on. My daughter, you took her out, and we went to Star Island, which is an island off of Maine, down by Portsmouth, New Hampshire there. Anyway, so she had, holding little chicks of gulls, and totally going bananas, with delight. We try to discourage it. Don't touch nature. It's separate. Touch it, which is absolutely crazy.
Sure. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's, I think, getting into the bigger picture beyond just education of culture and how cities are designed. I think there's this, I don't know where the idea comes from in European or American culture, but the idea of pushing nature away and try to separate from it and not having nature corridors for animals is not a rational idea. If we had more parks and nature corridors, then the kids could do more of that.
Yeah. They don't have any. They don't have it except running out in the streets. Yeah.
And if some people are concerned about the woods being used for cover for something, what about indoors between four walls? I mean, excuse me, you're in a closet. There's major cover where something could occur, where kids could get hurt, not so much in the woods. The woods are public. Everyone can get there. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have the idea of having a river around. Nobody stood as, so, it might be fine in pieces, but it's just something that we need contact with. We are born to, we are genetically programmed to be interested in, because that's where our livelihood used to come from, right? Yeah.
And we had to know what's out there, and so we have natural curiosity, and it starts out as when we're very young, but it has to be encouraged. That there's some value in it when it's expressed, rather than squelched and say, no, slap your hands, stay away, So,
yeah, couple things you said there are interesting, like the evolutionary aspect. I know I find when I get outdoors early in the morning, it helps me wake up in terms of my brain and mind really becoming engaged. Because inside everything's flat and boring and monotonous, but I can feel it when I get outside. It's like all of a sudden my awareness just shoots up.
Yeah.
I'm more conscious, more alive.
Instinct of yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's. But you need the opportunity to be able to tap into that, and that's a loss for many people who don't have opportunity, and we have less and less the more we become strictly urbanized, yeah.
And one thing I'm wondering is how much when people become indoors more and more and become more divorced from nature, how it might be anti-evolutionary, because it seems like from some things I've read, in one sense, evolution is the development of more and more complexity adapted to environments in the context of the situation at the times. Seems like it fills environments with complexity, and so by divorcing ourselves from nature and killing off species and separating ourselves, it seems like anti-evolution and therefore antithetical to our life.
Well, the thing is, the evolutionary history, is inscribed in our genes, and it was something. It's making me funny. Can you still hear me?
I can now.
Hello?
Yeah. I can hear you. Hello?
I can.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was going to say that evolutionary history, which is written in our genes, is millions of years old, okay? So it's not going to change in the next 100 or 1,000. It's going to stay pretty much the same because there's not much now, but there's no selective death. And if it's selective death, there's not, or selective breeding, there's breeding is less and less selective, which is fine. But the point is, it's not on strict behavioral tendencies. Most of the behavioral tendencies are in us genetic. They're learned. Most of our behaviors are learned, and we adapt. So we adapt, we find, and so somebody who is strictly so we had to let's say a city skill. I mean, I couldn't find my way around in the city, but I could learn, and after I learned, I would get around and I would adjust to it. But I might not be as happy if I adjusted to what is more in line with my genotype.
Yeah.
I'd be happier.
Yeah, and I think, was it E.O. Wilson who came up with the idea of biophilia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just a name for what is pretty obvious. We like living. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. People bring plants indoors.
But
go ahead.
Yeah. Go out camping and go fishing and go hunting, and and like to have special, ecological settings that we prefer. We like, a view. We like a snug home, etc. These are all, like if you look at other animals, they all like a specific habitat. There's biophilia for meadowlark as being a meadow. And biophilia for a barred owl is being out in the woods with big trees and wolves, and being out in the dark. I mean, every has its own biophilia, and we have our biophilia for our own conglomerate of natural things that we adapt. Of course, but it's a little bit hidden because we can so much superimpose our learning upon it. We can adapt. It's not so strictly programmed, but it is programmed nevertheless. I think E.O. Wilson is right. It's we have some innate tendencies to like certain things about the natural environment and everything that's in it. And we couldn't have been hunters unless we had some kind of empathy for animals, because in order to animals, you have to have empathy so you can predict them if they want, where they're going to be, what they're going to do, and particularly empathy.
Yeah. And I think that
comes
up... Go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I think correct me if you think, if you disagree, but I think more evidence for that comes up in something that people might dismiss as childish and not interpret right, but most every young kid, especially the boys, pretend they're animals. And because we're divorced from nature, I think people laugh at that, but if you think about it in the more bigger picture and look at evolution and everything, it seems like boys pretending they're animals is a very important thing evolutionarily. It's kind of boys learning to track and to know other animals and to be in touch with nature. So that should be encouraged more.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I remember, I look back to when I was 10, between 6 and 10 or 12 or so. I remember with the intense feeling for animals, identity with, like it was emotional high to just be close to an animal or to hold it in the hand, especially, and also ecological situation, to be out in a swamp or in the woods. There was some big emotional thing. I can remember the intent, and sometimes it comes back to me as though I'm feeling right now. But it is muted. It's now more, for the most part, connected with questions, with how do things work, and so it's what I'm doing is derived from that early, which not learned. They were just there, and just had to be awakened by very little contact and to made alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think I probably did the same thing and acted like some animals when I was a kid, and I don't do it the same way anymore and dress up and do all that, but still, without deliberate intention, sometimes when I'm out in the woods and I'm looking around, all of a sudden, and it's partly because of my experience and values and things I want to do. I couldn't do this without knowing the area that I go in and knowing and understanding to some extent deer or armadillo, but I'm out, and out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I like feel like I'm a deer, and I'm looking around as if I'm the deer. And so I think it's that same thing at a more advanced, like, adult level, kind of like you might be saying.
Yes, that's, when I was studying ravens, that's all it is. That's what it's about. It's trying to think like a raven, to be a raven, to know what it is they respond to, what moves them, and where they go, and what they, knowing what they do, and when they, and with whom, and under what conditions. It's science. That's what biology is.
Yeah. And I do that too. Like, I'm out and I see the track and I identify, okay, I know this path. I know it's an armadillo. I see this day after day, week after week, month after month. I know there's an armadillo here. And now, oh, look, he's digging here in the sand. Why is he digging in the sand? What is he after? And so then, it's like starting to be more kind of scientific to know why it's occurring, how things are interacting. But
you're just on the road Aboriginal hunter.
Yeah.
Which is learning about your environment, and that's what learning about reality. That's what science is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but some people into tracking, and there was a book written about it. I got a link to it on another podcast we did with Kim Cabrera, a tracker in California. But it's a book I want to read, but it's about it says that science developed out of tracking. That's the origin of human science.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, true.
Because I haven't read the book to see what the arguments are, but it seems like you got to know the nature of the thing, how it behaves, how it works in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You got to be able to think long term and predict. Just like I've heard you say, I've read, like, tracking, you got to be able to think long term, and that's what some scientific endeavors are. That's why you say it's better to live a life where you go after things in the long run than just a little twit here and there and a post here and there and just twitting around like maybe a squirrel or something. But even a squirrel plans ahead, buries nuts and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the time is very important. So for continuity, for example, some people might say, well, they go one continent to the next and from one to the next. I mean, I'm here in Maine, and I've been here since I was a kid. I know when an act comes up, I notice it right off. So I'm knowing, 100 stories all. I mean, this is the first I back, I realized it was and I hadn't seen it before, but if I had just gone through, I'd see that links track and I would see nothing of it because it doesn't have any context. So everything has a context. So it's again like measuring the big picture, putting in the dots one at a time. Until the dots, and that can be from looking at the same thing in many different places, or see how they connect with other things in the same place, or connect with what you know, what others have found, your own. It's a matter of connecting the dots and finding new dots. So based on not just dreaming things up, but based on reality that you can see, feel, and smell, and examine and prove.
Yeah, and that's like a big thing missing from education, I think, and one thing that Dr. Montessori, when she started Montessori education way back beginning of the 1900s in Italy, she knows that the senses had to specifically be developed by a teacher. So Montessori would have things so students learn to develop their sense of touch and sight and feel on young kids. She knew it was basic to science.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the more you know, the more you can see. I mean, or hear. It's amazing. You know, you go through the woods here, and I hear this bird and that bird and the other bird, and somebody else goes, and they don't hear. It's because they don't know them. You know, it first begins in listening and being and realizing there's something there, and you're alert, and then you notice.
Yeah.
You're sharpening your sense.
I found that too. Like, I'd exercise in a gym, and then I got into this stuff called MoveNat, and I'd exercise outdoors more. And after a while, though, I don't know, like 5 or 7 years ago, I realized, you know, I'm out in these woods, and I'm a stranger. It's like, I might as well be a Martian from Mars. I don't know anything here. So I started studying like tracking and foraging, and then there, kind of like you say, then I started getting into, okay, I got the tracks, well then you need to know about the animals and therefore some zoology, and the plants you need to know about biology and botany, and well therefore the ecology, and now I go out in the woods, and it's like, these are my friends. Like, hey, Hackberry, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
I've seen you every week for the past few years, and I know that where Armadillo is, and where I'm going to see some rabbits, and where what is it, a prickly ash is located, and stuff like that. And now I'm at home. They're part of me, and I'm part of them. Wild onions, southern dewberry, you know, is beautiful.
Yeah, you feel a connection. You're part of it, really, because you become part. Because we all are a part of nature, of course. So
obviously.
That's what we are part of. So that's the way I'm a part of. We're all a part of something real, and the more we know about it, the more we know we are a part of something very, very beautiful and grand and wonderful. We're going to some imaginary place. We are right here, right now. Right here. Magical, and we're just a part, and we will be in it forever.
Yeah. But I have to say that you two gentlemen are a rare find. I mean, hardly anyone would agree or understand even what you're saying and what you both are in love with so much. What do you think people should, I mean, how would you advise others to kind of enjoy that or even embrace it a little bit? What would you guys do?
Well, I don't know if you can tell people to, go enjoy that and they necessarily enjoy it. But as we were, I think nature is the greatest entertainment there is. There's so much going on. We need to preserve as much as we can in the natural state and get young people interested and give them contact and just give them contact and let them gather knowledge, let them soak it up, expose them and show them it's valuable, show them it's beautiful, give them a reason for finding it, whether you eat it or collect it for your little hobby rather than stamps or something you collect maybe. or butterfly, but get your feet onto into the nature, and your eyes out and your ears open, and set an example by exposure. I think it would come naturally.
Mm-hmm. So
because people, I think, resonate with real, what they can really experience and connect to.
Right. So that maybe at first it would seem foreign and if someone just finally sort of stepped out of their cocoon in their own home and sort of stepped out, and it might at first seem foreign to them, but there's something in them that it would also identify with it and feel comfortable and at home and healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was going to say earlier, sorry to interrupt really quickly, but if being outdoors has these effects on me and gives me this serenity, not because it's made up in my head, but because it's natural and real. I'm not creating any of it. It's like I feel serene and good, and it wakes up my brain and mind and makes me active because it's deep in our nature.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it requires the contact. It requires the contact, and the earlier the better. The thing is, there's so little opportunity, because most people are not have opportunity except quick and at a tiny little piece, absorb it until they see a little bit more and their thing, and get that on it, and actually have a reason. And like, if you're going to be collecting that, then you would automatically be out there seeing all kinds of things. You're going to be fishing for trout. You might see all kinds of things that you never thought, and you will. The physicality of being out there fishing isn't to do things that you could never even think about. But the thing is, you're going to bring home fish and you're going to eat it, and you're going to say, "Wow," like that. So, and I think we all kind of start out as kind of little hunters. I know I would be out there hunting bugs, and then I'd be hunting birds. But that's not a good thing to do when you're hunting birds. But in some way, hunting them on camera, you could do it, or in different ways to capture something that you can boom and show off. Because that's what we're doing. We're hunter-gatherers. That's why we're tracking.
And one thing really quickly, sorry to interrupt, but one thing, like you say, that you can hunt with the camera, that's one thing I like to do, and people would be shocked, maybe. They'd be really surprised at the patience. Okay, so what I'll do sometimes is I like to sneak up, stalk a butterfly with my iPhone camera, not some telephoto lens. So if I want to take a good picture, I've got to slowly crawl on all fours, get on my belly, and go up to it. And I've got to do yoga poses with my hands and hold my arms out for a minute or two or three and get a good picture of the butterfly. And then I try to back off really slowly so I don't scare it. You want some exercise, you try that, or a dragonfly to sometimes I've got my right leg crossed in front of me by my left arm and my left leg is back, and then I bend my knees and I extend my arms out to one side, and I'm holding that for like 3 to 5 minutes to try to get a picture. You don't got to pay for yoga. You could do it outside on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, as you say, it's like hunting with the camera.
Yeah.
It's like perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I like your idea of like just getting out, like to put it what you said in a different way. There's all these different interests people could pursue to get into nature, and then just take it one step at a time and let it develop. Because there's so much infinite variety out there. Take pictures of study butterflies, dragonflies, birds, do birding, trees, go hunting, go fishing, go for picnics.
Yeah.
Go for a picnic, and then ask questions. What kind of tree is this? Is this a good shade tree? What's here? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And then take it from there, just like you say.
Yeah. Just get out there.
Yeah. Please. But
and it's healthy too.
Very. There's a lot people could read on that, like Last Child in the Woods by Richard Louv, I think. Nature Fix by Florence. Forgot her last name, but there's a lot of books and scientific studies about the benefits of being outdoors. Air quality, bacteria that are there, sunlight, and then people can learn a lot about human health by studying animals. Like I've learned more about vitamin D and how we produce it and everything by studying a little bit how it's produced in the the skin of a snake.
Right. Good. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't know it was produced in skin, but I didn't know in the snake skin. But we are all animals and have similar problems, solutions, but just different lifestyles.
Yeah.
But you learn about ourselves from studying other animals.
Yeah. That's one reason why I read some of your books, to learn about consciousness in general. I don't think you can really understand human consciousness without understanding chimpanzees, dogs, cats, ravens, blue jays, rabbits.
Yeah. It's a continuity in just about everything. We're definitely every species is a little differentiated from another one, but we all do the same thing, the same problems, and we all very closely. Life came from the same source. That's amazing. Look at the cellular level, identical. So we all come from the source, and all related. So I like to think of as the whole Earth as an organism that started as an organism. The organism branched into till it's all many interrelated the same way as the body is. So it's the whole system, the whole Earth. It's all interrelated. One huge at different levels. So the more you learn, the more you see how everything is connected.
It's complicated. As I like to tell people, I only started really digging into biology like 3 or 5 years ago, and I've got a degree in math and a degree in philosophy. I'm just no. You think calculus is hard? No, calculus is easy. You want complexity and complicated? Study biology.
Yeah, it's never ending. Yeah. But you can. They're ending problems, and so that means that they're ending fashion. Once you study the one always leads to, and it never ends.
Could you repeat that, Dr. Heinrich? Sorry, it broke up a little bit.
I was just saying there are so many problems at different levels, and one always leads to another. And so, that's why I have been doing different things from south to eastern, because, I've started from one and just followed it up once at a time to another level, and letting myself led rather than become expert on any one thing. I try to be led from one thing to another as it comes up.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I've done with like teaching. I haven't gotten, well, if I want to be a good math teacher, I need to like study math real hard, or teaching really hard. It's like, no, I need to know physics and chemistry and biology and philosophy and the history of science and the history of math. That's what's going to make me better. And I think it has. Psychology. So kind of exact same idea there.
Yeah. Yep.
But, well, we've gone about an hour, and I'm getting my back up against the wall in terms of time. Need to leave soon for, like, work.
Okay.
But I hate it because this is an awesome discussion, and I'm loving the heck out of it, and I want it to continue forever, but all good things must come to an end. Everything's limited and finite. But,
well, I hope you can get something. Admissions come through there.
Definitely.
It's pretty amazing. I'm talking to someone here. Is it in Texas or something, or where is it?
Pardon?
Where are you?
Yeah, in Houston, Texas.
Where are you? In Texas?
Yeah.
In Houston, Texas. Yeah. In the Maine woods, talking to each other. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
I could never have imagined that when I was a kid, right?
Yeah, me either. No way. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, Melanie. Okay.
Yeah, we enjoyed the
have a great day, okay?
Okay, thank you. You too.
Yeah.
We loved it. We'd much appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Super. Bye-bye.